Yeah, I will say for State of Decay 3, you're gonna not be able to ignore the plague threat. You can't just sit in your base and be like, I'm just gonna manage my community and ignore the world out there. It's coming for you.
First trailer back in 2020, there was zombie deers, snow, there was camping, there was a lot of elements.
There really wasn't a game when we were working on that trailer. Like, it was so early.
There wasn't even a team.
I mean, there was like 4 or 5 people. This is not scripted, and as you play the game, you're gonna encounter scenarios that harken back to your favorite comic or your favorite TV series, favorite zombie movie. I think, you know, I've worked on a lot of games in my career, and this is the most fun, the best looking, the most performant game that I've ever been a part of.
If I didn't ask this question, everyone over there is gonna be really mad at me, so I have to ask, even though I do know the answer.
You're gonna ask me about my ship date.
With that, can you give us any information on a release date or release window for State of Decay 3?
Guys, the time has arrived. We have exclusive information regarding State of Decay 3 in today's video. We also have an alpha test every single one of you can sign up for down with the link below. Now, if you guys don't know me, my name is Sunny, and I was recently flown down to Seattle, and I got to meet with the head of Undead Labs, Holt, where I got to ask him about the upcoming game, and I gotta say, he had a ton of cool information to share with us. We also have exclusive screenshots that I'm gonna pepper throughout this interview where you guys can really check out what the game is looking like. I'm not gonna waste any more time. Let's get straight into it.
I'm really excited to be here with Holt himself here. This is the man. Philip, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Sure. My name is Philip. I'm studio head here at Undead Labs. Been here for about 7 years. Been in the industry for an embarrassing long time, like over 30 years. So yeah, really happy to have you join us at Undead Labs. This is a moment that we've been really excited about, just to resume our conversation with the community. We're big fans of your channel, and so we're happy to have this conversation, excited for it.
All right, so we're gonna start with a big question. One of the things that I think a lot of people will be interested to know is how has the game evolved from State of Decay 1 to 2 and now with 3?
Yeah, so I'll give you maybe 2 ways to think about that. One is just like the time setting of the games. So State of Decay 1 took place maybe like a couple of weeks after the zombie outbreak. State of Decay 2 was maybe a year or so later, year and a half, something like that. We've always been kind of non-specific about the actual time settings. This is when sort of government had fallen apart and you're really on your own, and your job is to sort of find some other communities, the survivors, to ally with. State of Decay 3 goes years into the future. So, you know, the group of survivors now has become a little bit more hardened. They've seen their share of death. The zombie menace is now presenting itself in a new way. Curtains up on State of Decay 3, and your group of survivors has to really adapt to what they're seeing.
In a more dangerous way?
A much more dangerous way, yeah, for sure, 100%. So, yeah, the threats are real, they're lethal, and they're coming after you. So that's sort of the time setting. Another way to sort of think about the franchise and how it's evolving, I would say, like, one thing that we talk about a lot internally is there was a real heart and soul to State of Decay 1 in the characters and sort of the story that we were able to tell. State of Decay 2 really tried to push more with systemic gameplay and sort of procedurally generated characters, and give players like more of a sandbox experience that we loved. And so we talk about State of Decay 3 of like delivering on the systemic features from State of Decay 2 with a little bit more of the heart and soul of State of Decay 1. So maybe that's a way to sort of think about how the franchise is evolving.
All right, so the one thing that a lot of people might be surprised about, I guess we're announcing this a little bit, is there was a player council. I am part of that player council, me and some other creators. We're not gonna share who. If those guys wanna come out and say who they are, they can. With the player council, that's basically a group of us who have come in and have been along the ride here for about a year. What can you tell us about what the player council is and what their kind of goal is to be alongside you guys in this development process?
Yeah, super excited to be able to reveal that we've been working with a group of people from our audience that have been in the build now for the better part of a year.
They've been playing it for a bit.
And have seen how the build has evolved even in that period of time.
Yes, it has.
It was probably a little rough when you got there.
Was,
You're probably a little worried about, oh my God, what's happening? But then you can see
I was really worried actually, and then now it's like, whoa, okay, you see the vision. It's awesome.
And you see the pace of change in
Yeah.
in our trajectory. So Yeah, it's really important to us that we're building a game that our audience is going to love. And what better way than to bring key people from our community into the development process to play the builds as we hit milestones. You are playing our milestones. You're seeing our progress. You're giving us feedback on the things you love, the things that you don't like, and then that is impacting our plans. And so if you sort of think about this progression, there's a small group that's a part of the player council. It's been with us for a while, giving feedback on the game. The alpha test now is an expanded group of people that are going to give us feedback. And then the beta tests that are going to roll later in the year, again, we're going to expand the size of the audience that's giving us feedback. And we're looking for different things from those groups as we go. And all of this is a way to get to launch with a game that we know our audience is going to love.
Yeah, one of the cool things about that player council is we get to give feedback and give our kind of take. And I know a lot of us, especially me as myself, I can't speak for the other creators, we kind of take their feedback. And even if it's not something that I'm particularly caring about, I know that a lot of the community cares about it. So that was one of the things that I think wasn't necessarily stated right now, but it's one of the big things that I think a lot of us as creators who have been in this player council, and the ones who are not, who've been able to give you guys feedback, that it's something that we want, whether it's a feature or something, maybe the way the game's playing out. So I think that's been really cool that you've had us along the whole way. So in a way, you guys do kind of have that representation, which I think is pretty neat. And something I'd say unique to the fact that, not every, studio does this. So I think that's been really cool.
Yeah, and as we thought about like who are the members of the player council, they each bring perhaps a constituency that they represent, just based on their kind of role within our community. So we were, selective in who we brought in, who we invited in. It's international.
And it wasn't just creators, it was people from the community themselves, which is really cool, by the way.
Yeah, and the members of the player council, if they want to reveal that they've been a part of it, they're free to do that. And but it's up to each of them on what they want to reveal.
Xbox Studios you guys are collaborating with other studios. I know one of them is the Coalition and the other one is Obsidian with Grounded. Can you kind of tell us more about those partnerships and how have they helped you guys out?
Yeah, one of the real benefits to being a part of Xbox is that we are joining this community of developers. And there's so much expertise across all of these studios that we're able to tap into. So yeah, I think our working relationship with the Coalition has been kind of well documented. They provide a lot of technology that we and other studios inside of Xbox are able to leverage. We authored a little piece of code that we gave to Obsidian that was the sort of basis of the shared world, shared save inside of Grounded. They extended that functionality and we sort of get it back for State of Decay 3. So like those are great opportunities for code sharing, but there's also just a lot of expertise sharing.
I'm curious, when they were testing it out with Grounded, was that kind of feedback you guys are planning to use with State of Decay 3, like kind of seeing how it functions with them?
Yeah,
and
for
then
sure.
Taking that? Okay.
Yeah, it's road tested, it's live in
Right.
in a piece of software that players are using. So yeah, we can sort of see how players are responding to it. They've made some modifications to the code as well, extended it in ways that we'll benefit from. So it's just like that sort of back and forth is a perfect example of.
Awesome.
Yeah, but I think the expertise sharing is a bigger part of that. Just being able to call anybody inside of, Bethesda and Activision and King.
Does that happen regularly?
Inside of the studio head community, I would say we talk to each other a lot. And then the tech directors and there's like these groups that meet and they're sort of grassroots networks that build across the studios, and there's a lot of sharing that happens that way. It's pretty cool.
All right, so my next question is, I think the question I've been looking forward to asking the most. I think it's one that we can kind of put to bed, I guess. That is the first trailer back in 2020. There was zombie deers, there was snow, there was camping. There was a lot of elements that I know I personally pulled from that trailer to talk about, hey, we're gonna see this in the next game, and et cetera, et cetera. What can you tell us, I guess, about that trailer? Because we have heard reports that not everybody was on board with the trailer, or there was just reports from you guys that, it was something that was done a little bit beforehand. What can you tell us about that trailer, and if anything from that trailer is coming to 3?
No zombie deer.
No zombie deer.
No zombie deer.
No zombie deer.
No zombie deer. So that trailer in 2020, there really wasn't a game or a game team when we were working on that trailer. Like, it was so early. And, I think
there wasn't even a team.
I mean, there was like 4 or 5 people. You know,
Wow.
the game was in a Word document. You know, it was not, there was really like the very beginnings of software. So the trailer was done by Blur. It was all pre-rendered. It represented, I think, a concept, you know, our thoughts at the time of what might be cool to explore in State of Decay 3. And as we've had a chance to build the team and get going on the game, you know, some of those elements I think are going to persist in the game that we deliver, and some of those things were just like, yeah, we're not doing zombie animals.
Okay, well, you guys heard it. There's no zombie animals. I gotta say I'm a little bummed about that, but either way, I thought it was kind of an interesting concept, but it makes sense. You know, it was done before you guys even knew, so good to know.
Before we go a little further, if you guys can do me a huge favor, check if you're subscribed. It actually helps so much keeping the channel going. It keeps the lights going, and it's completely free to hit that button. We've done a ton of work to get this video out for you guys, so if you're enjoying it, please hit that button, and thank you for joining me on this YouTube journey.
What we saw with the last trailer with State of Decay 3 was things definitely looked a lot more evolved. You could tell there was, you know, more plague. Freaks were definitely evolved. I guess what can you tell us about how this world that players are going to engage with in State of Decay 3, how's that going to look?
Yeah, so I think the story we like to talk about is State of Decay 1 took place like weeks after the zombie outbreak. State of Decay 2 took place a year or so later, sort of government had failed, you're really on your own. The sort of point to State of Decay 2 was to find other communities of survivors that you could ally with. State of Decay 3 is years farther into the future. And so your group of survivors is a little more hardened. You know, they've had to live in the zombie threat for years now.
Yeah.
The world is sort of picked over. So you're not really like looking for cans of food as much as you are kind of materials that you can bring back to your base and sort of build things with. So and the zombie menace has evolved, and it's sort of re-emerged in a new threat as we begin the sort of the game at State of Decay 3, and you're having to face this now more dangerous zombie presence.
So then what can you tell us about as far as the freaks? Everything and the zombies, everything's good. We could see in the trailer they were evolved. So are they going to be more dangerous, and how dangerous are they going to be essentially?
Yeah. Well, the trailer sort of ended with the big boy, you know, the juggernaut. He is quite tall in the game. He's immense.
He looked ridiculous.
Yeah, he's a big boy. My favorite, I think, is the bloater. I think in State of Decay 2, really, you just like suddenly drive through a bloater and you'd have to bail out of your car. It's kind of an annoyance. I think the bloater is going to be, he's awesome. He's just so cool. I can't wait for people to see the bloater.
Yeah. So one of the things that you kind of alluded to this earlier, but one of the things we know is it's years down the road, like you said. You've talked about it being a makeshift era culture of what we're going to see in the future. What can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so like I said, it's many years into the future. The world's been picked clean, so you're not going to necessarily find the same kinds of things that you would find in State of Decay 2. So you're scavenging out in the world more raw materials that you're going to bring back to your settlement, and then that's going to allow you to craft or build things like weapons or improvised devices that you can then take back out into the world. So there's a lot more of that. Like, we talk internally a lot about maker culture and just sort of making use of what you find and then reassembling those into kind of new things that you're able to use in the game.
So like things like you have to make your Molotovs and stuff.
Yeah, Molotovs and like the improvised explosive devices. And in fact, it's so cool because we have a concept artist here that builds all these things, and we like talk about how the circuitry works. Like, we really try to get the detail right. And you know, so he's doing research on like a tea kettle, that how do you turn that into something that whistles, it attracts zombies and explodes. And I'm just fearful that the Department of Homeland Security is going to break down our door at some point, because we're looking for like how to build these bombs.
We're going to be learning how to build these things in the game. And so that would mean that essentially crafting is going to play a really big role in the next game.
Like really like pulling these things together and then building inside of your facility. And so you level up your facility, so it enables you to sort of get to the next level of what you can create.
That's good, because I know in State of Decay 2 we did find a lot of whole, grenades and guns and ready to use things. So now to see that it's going to shift a bit and it's going to be a lot more crafting, I think will be I think it's gonna be fun. I personally think it will be fun. I don't know how everybody else is gonna feel, but I think it's gonna be fun. So that's cool to see.
And just really trying to extend the fantasy of like, how would you survive? Like, it's a big part, like we really care about, enabling people to live out their fantasy of survival and what they would do in a zombie apocalypse.
Okay, so one of the things I noticed in the trailer, there were some cool little combat moves that happened. There were some cool little things that we noticed. I know from my own experience playing it. What can you tell us about maybe how combat has evolved, or anything that you can tell us at all about combat going forward with State of Decay 3?
Yeah, it's been such a huge focus for us from the very beginning, and really trying to elevate and evolve the combat experience in the game. It has been a big part of our focus and attention internally. The team that's working on it is doing phenomenal work. It's what you do the most in the game is pilot your character around the world. Yeah. So the huge emphasis in locomotion, making the character feel much more responsive to your input, whether it's controller or mouse and keyboard, and then just the combat experience itself, making that feel like, again, it's accessible, like new players can come pick it up, but it's also got enough depth to it that you can play for hundreds or thousands of hours and not grow tired of the experience.
Right, so as you know, a lot of us kind of, and you mentioned this earlier, a lot of us kind of play, at least I know I do, play a game like State of Decay because we kind of want to know or feel what we would do in those situations and how we would survive those situations. What would you say with State of Decay 3 where we will have those types of experiences? What can you say about the game itself that'll maybe give us those kind of experiences?
Yeah, I think one of the things I love in the game is our settlements. Yeah. And we really want the settlements to have variety and have real character and feel distinctive and memorable. And there's a number in the game today that are just so cool. I would hole up in the top of the hill with a wind turbine and have some free power. That makes sense. Or you might be in another place in the world where the settlement itself gives you sort of a benefit because of what it was before. So that's one way I think that we pay off that fantasy. Okay. And then ultimately, we just try to create a number of systems that the players can then enact their own survival fantasy. And so much of the play that we saw in State of Decay 2 was player-inspired goals. I've done a playthrough, absolutely. And now I want to do this with I'm not going to take a settlement. Can I make it through the game without actually taking a settlement? Can I make it through the game with a single character? Right. People create their own kind of goals for themselves, and we'd love to see that. So we want to enable players to be self-directed that way as much as they want to be.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've always loved about the franchise is just being able to kind of have your own idea of what you want to accomplish, and that's going to be different for every player. And I think that's one of the neat things about the franchise itself is just kind of being able to choose what you want to do, if that's take on every plague heart there is, or just focus on building and trying to survive in that way and focusing on your community. So
yeah, I will say for State of Decay 3, you're gonna not be able to ignore the plague threat. Okay. And so it is coming after you, whether you are prepared or not. And so we really bring the menace to you. Mm-hmm. And there's a real balance that I think the players are going to have to strike between trying to build up and be powerful enough to meet the threat as it comes to you. Do you continue to build and build and build? When do you go, sort of take this thing on? Because it's only going to get stronger and come after you as well. So you can't just sit in your base and be like, I'm just going to manage my community and ignore the world out there. It's coming for you.
What's funny about that is in my experience with 3, that's exactly what basically happened. I was used to kind of being able to, and I was playing in the highest difficulty, I was playing on lethal. I was able to kind of build up a little bit, but I realized the threat was coming, and it was coming hard and fast, and it was starting to surround me, so I was getting really worried, so I had to drop everything I was doing and focus on that. So you would say that's something that players are going to have to contend with 3.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it's part of the franchise. Internally, we talk a lot about State of Decay is the thing that happens when you run out of gas as night is approaching, and now you're on foot. And so we because it's a systems game, this is not scripted. And as you play the game, you're going to encounter scenarios that harken back to your favorite comic or your favorite TV series or your favorite zombie movie. And we see this as fans tell us about their experiences, they describe them in ways that like that could be a movie. Like that what they just experienced, like they have these moments in the game that become sort of zombie headcanon. It's so cool. And I think that's what's unique about our game.
So one thing I noticed about the trailer, I know I talked about it as well on my channel as far as the Xbox article, you kind of alluded how in the trailer there was those 4 players that were trying to survive. Obviously, one of them ended up dying, and it felt like there was an emphasis as far as kind of that group setting and multiplayer. Basically, what can you tell us about multiplayer with State of Decay 3?
Yeah, I think we are delivering on the player expectation they have for, I want to play this game, own a community, build out bases with my friends. And State of Decay 2 didn't really deliver on that experience. You know, you can join my world and ride along with me and help me do things, but you know, you didn't have ownership on the community that we were playing. It was my community, you were a guest in it.
Right.
And for, you know, State of Decay 3, I think that's one of the most important things that we really want to deliver is meeting player expectation around a 4-player co-op shared world that we all get to play together.
And is there anything you can elaborate about the shared world as far as, I know Grounded, someone can come in offline, they can build on it. Is that something we can expect with 3? Can people build on what they're doing with other players maybe in the host, not being online?
Yeah, so one player will sort of start the world and invite their friends to join them. And then as they join, they have full authorship over this community. So whether whoever, like you can play synchronously or asynchronously in this shared world. So you'll have to make sure that you have good friends.
Yeah.
And they don't get your
That was
favorite
one of
character
my next
killed.
questions. Yeah, is your favorite character going to die somehow if they take over? Is that a thing? It could be a thing?
Yeah, then, you know, have better friends.
There's going to be a lot of chaos in the community with that one. I have no doubt that people are going to come online and see all their characters dead or something.
Yeah, so you just need to be careful about who you invite into your shared community.
As far as we know, State of Decay 3 is going to have that shared world. Is there anything else you can tell us maybe that's different compared to State of Decay 2? State of Decay 2, you're very tethered, you're very close, and like you said, it wasn't shared. It was more like you were in someone else. Is there anything else?
Yeah, so State of Decay 2 was built on a peer-to-peer networking model. So the host player literally was hosting other players on their machine.
Yeah.
And State of Decay 3 is built on a server-based model. So the game is hosted on a server. So that allows us to we just have a lot more capability in where players can be in the world. So they're not tethered as they were in State of Decay 2.
I got to play, and we did some multiplayer. One cool thing, he said that we weren't tethered, and he's completely right. And we were able, me and a group of 2 other guys, we were able to spread out and visit a town. We were able to hit different points, and that's one thing I absolutely loved. And we got to we weren't having to be stuck together. We got to go and do our own thing and actually be a little bit more efficient. And I really feel like a lot of players' fantasies are really going to play that up and be like, okay, we're all surviving. We all got a plan. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. Player A do this, B, and C, you guys go do that. Is that what you guys were kind of going for?
Yeah, we really want to deliver on that. I mean, again, that's a player expectation. We want to be able to deliver on that. And there are going to be things you're going to have to come together to, like, you know, the sort of plague threat.
We were never too far away from each other if something did go down.
So, I mean, we want to create an experience that's more fun to play together, but we also recognize that people are going to have their own objectives that they're trying to accomplish in a shared world together. I think the thing that I'm a little hesitant to commit to today is, like, we've got to test this with players and load, so we understand, like, the sort of infrastructure cost of supporting this. But it is definitely going to be a more untethered experience than you saw in State of Decay 2, 100%.
I'm excited for that, by the way. Yeah. I'm excited for you guys to test that out. It's really cool. All right, so all this multiplayer talk, and if I didn't ask this question, people would get very upset. Not everyone's into multiplayer.
Oh, yeah.
Not everyone's into multiplayer. So what can you tell us about the solo experience for State of Decay 3?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because like that is something that like most players played State of Decay 2 in the solo fashion. We know that there's a big part of our audience that's not interested in playing multiplayer. We're hoping that the multiplayer experience that we deliver is more compelling and more people will play it, obviously. But we don't want to lose sight of the fact that a lot of people just want to have a solo experience. So that is a key part of what we're focused on. And our expectation is a majority of our audience will actually play the game single player, a solo experience. And we want to make sure that they have an amazing time in the game as a solo player. One
thing from my experience I noticed when I was playing solo was It was almost overwhelming, but in a good way. I had a lot of cool things to tackle. It was a lot more efficient with multiplayer, but the single player aspect was a lot of fun because even though I was alone, it definitely made you want to rely on a lot of your basically your settlement and your community members that were with you. Was that something you guys intended? Is there like, I guess the question I'm asking is, do you guys feel like you have good balance with the multiplayer and the single portion of the game?
Well, so you're playing a game in development, and so it's not a final balance.
Right.
And yeah, so I think that's the key part of like the task for us is to make sure that we balance the difficulty so a single player is not overwhelmed by the world, and that we scale the difficulty when you're playing with multiple people so that you don't just easily go through and accomplish the things that a single player might struggle with. So yeah, that's a key part of the balance pass. And we do it as we develop, like we want to make sure that we're having a balanced experience, but those are the final knobs that we tune before we launch.
Yeah, and I only asked the question because I know a lot of people are going to say, are they focusing too much on one thing or another, and are they leaving us out? So that's why I asked the question, and at least from my experience, I can say you guys have done a good job so far. I know there's still more tuning, but you guys have done a good job.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, that is our hope, is that we recognize that we have a lot of different players with different preferences, and we want to make sure that everybody feels like we're making a game for them. Yeah, and our solo players are super important. We're not leaving them behind.
Yeah, they're going to be happy to hear that. So State of Decay 2 finished with a lot of really cool updates, a lot of cool things that were added to the game at the end that a lot of players, I think maybe from the beginning, didn't get to experience, but there was things, for example, like curveballs, the infestation system, all that stuff from State of Decay 2. Is there anything from State of Decay 2's like updates towards the end coming to 3?
Yeah, I think, so like when I got here in 2019, the only planned update that was remaining was Heartland. There was nothing following. There was no plan to support the title post Heartland. So that was June of 2019, I think.
Right.
But I looked at how we were performing and the audience that we had, and I'm like, we need to support this game for years, and there's a lot to go learn. There's, the game to evolve. So we're very much taking that approach for State of Decay 3. This is a game we intend to support for as long as we possibly can. And, the launch is the beginning, really, of your experience with your audience. And then you adjust and adapt and extend and enhance the game from there. So State of Decay 2, we learned a lot. The Closet, for example, was one of the early updates we did. And it was like 30% of our daily audience interacted with changing their characters' outfits.
By the way, that's cool. I didn't know about that. That's fascinating.
It's a massively popular feature. So yeah, we want that, and of course that'll be there. I think that the other two updates that were really, really instructive for us, one was Plague Territories, which you were talking about, and the other was the Heart Attack update. Both of those really changed the dynamic of how the zombies sort of worked, how infestations worked, how sieges happened, the connection that they had to each other, how you'd wake up a plague heart, that sort of mechanic. And so that is a jumping off point for State of Decay 3 and our plague system. So I think that really informed our thinking about what's going to come in State of Decay 3.
Well, what's interesting about that, in State of Decay 2, before I started covering you guys and having my channel, the threat wasn't as hardcore as it got towards the end of 2, where you really felt like, okay, this is a hive mind that's now it's thinking, it's planning, and it's coming after your group. And that was something that was unique and really evolved with State of Decay 2, and I liked it. We've alluded to it earlier in State of Decay 3. You mentioned it. You can't sit back at your base and just kind of build everything up. So is that one of your plans going with State of Decay 3? Were you guys really wanting to kind of emphasize, hey, this plague threat is serious?
Yeah, and it's changed. And so the sort of intervening time between State of Decay 2 and State of Decay 3 in the game world, the years, there was sort of a stasis where the survivor sort of figured out how to live in the world of zombies. And at the beginning of State of Decay 3, this new threat has changed and evolved. And suddenly you're like, this is why we sort of curtains up and it's time to play State of Decay 3. So very much has that plague threat. I think if you go back and look at the showcase trailer of 24 and how we end on the scene on the bridge and the gunk and the plague that's all over so you're going to see stuff like that in State of Decay 3.
So with that, what kind of post-launch support can we expect with State of Decay 3? What are we going to see?
I mean, you're going to see a team that launches the game and then I imagine there's going to be some hot fixes.
Yeah.
We are going to.
Are we going to see any famous bugs of like cars flying up in the air?
I mean, gosh, I hope not. I think there was I played State of Decay 2 in 2019 as I was interviewing. I hadn't played the game prior to the sort of interview process. So the first thing I did was sit down with the game, and so it was early and it was not long after launch, and I think the sort of descriptor in the audience is lovable jank.
Yeah.
And the game had that, but it also had this like core to the game that made me want to root for it. Like there was just like, it was really delivering, I think, on the core fantasy of can you survive in the zombie apocalypse. And so, I love that about the game, and I saw opportunity for us to improve the experience and get away from, jank. So we certainly hope we're going to launch a super clean, really high quality experience. Obviously I can't guarantee that there aren't going to be bugs at launch. It'd be foolish to do. Right. But we're going to be prepared to address those things. I would also say, as we think about, a live and evolving game, is that, part of what we are planning for is planned updates. Like we have a list of things that we want to go deliver post-launch, and that we're super excited about, and we think the audience is going to really respond to.
Will you be able to share that later down the line?
Yeah, I would love to be in a place where we have kind of a live roadmap of planned updates that are coming. I don't want to commit to a specific date, partly because we also have to respond to the game that players are playing.
Yeah.
And if something breaks, or if there's like something that we built that people just don't like, or it's not working the way that we intended, we need to address that. So part of our planning for live support is be responsive to the game in the field, and then also deliver the things that we want to go deliver. I'm so excited. We have been working hard for years, and we're at a place where the game is really coming together, as you can see, and we're excited to be able to be back in front of the community and talking about the game again. This is a big moment for us as well.
So with that, what do you think is maybe the biggest feature that a lot of people might be very excited for with State of Decay 3? Well, maybe in your eyes, what's the biggest thing that people are going to find fun?
Well, I think the core of the game, the thing that people love about State of Decay, is going to be there, and so that there's a variety of features that make that experience, and I think that's what's so cool about State of Decay as a franchise, is it doesn't rely on just one thing. Yeah. It's permadeath is a staple of the franchise, and it makes the decisions that you make matter. Like there is a consequence to losing a character. They're gone for good. That is an emotional experience that you have when you lose a community member, especially one that's one of your favorites that you've been playing with for a long time. Like there is an emotional loss that you go through. And what's really interesting, and we see in our data, is like players that really know the game and are playing the game, when they lose a character, it actually increases their engagement.
Really?
It's counterintuitive, I think, a little bit. So, but that's because it's not just permadeath. It's like all of the systems that support scavenging and building, and you start to have an attachment. I think the other thing that we've learned, we ran this like a user group years ago, sort of a research project, and all these players came to the experience and they played differently. So some were like wild risk takers, and they would just go out and like, let's go take down a heart, or let's go find a fight. And others were hoarders, and they would I want to scavenge and build up my stockpiles. So they had very different play motivations, but when they described like what they loved about the game, they all talked about their role as a caretaker of these survivors. And so I love that, so maybe this is a long way to get to the answer you're looking for, is I hope players of State of Decay 3 have that same experience where I have responsibility to safeguard these group of humans that are in this terrible situation in this world, and it's my duty to keep them alive.
So what would you say then, maybe build off of that, but what would you say could be a surprise that players are just going to be a little bit like, oh, that's neat?
Well, I think, when you boot the game up, you're going to be like, this game looks incredible.
It's funny. I was going to say the exact same thing. The first thing you're going to notice is just the quality. It looks good.
Yeah, it looks great. I think the sort of feel of play, people are going to respond to really well. I think the choices they get to make, that's the other thing, was like, you can't have all the things. in a play session. You have to make choices in like, which settlement do I take? Which enclave do I ally with? Every playthrough is going to be different because of that, because you can't have all of them in a playthrough. You're going to have to make choices, and one choice that you make eliminates other options for you. So, it is like we talk about one of our core pillars is this idea of consequence. And permadeath is a part of that. And again, the choices that you make about where to invest your resources and what part of your base that you're going to upgrade. And so one of the other play patterns that we see in State of Decay 2 is people have a playthrough experience and they start over and they build a new community. And so it's almost like they have a run, right. and then they go back and repeat it and they make some changes. And so I hope we see people do that again in State of Decay 3.
Is there going to be some balance as far as, because you mentioned, and I felt it, when you're playing, like this Plague threat is serious. Like it's really trying to get you. Is there going to be maybe difficulties, maybe like different difficulties, or a balance to players who maybe want to chill a little bit more versus the players who are like, all right, this threat's coming, I'm ready to take it. I don't mind that it's coming at this moment, because I definitely felt that. So is that something you guys are looking to balance?
100%. So, the sort of difficulty sliders that we had in State of Decay 2, I think that was an early update in the live experience. 100% that'll be in State of Decay 3. So awesome. We'll allow people, I don't know if it'll be the exact implementation that you saw in State of Decay 2, but this concept of I want a easier combat experience or a harder one, or I want my resourcing, the scavenging, the loot that I'm able to find in the world to be easier or harder, or the sort of management simulation part of it. Each of those will be independently tunable by the audience, 100%. I would say maybe a big difference in State of Decay 2 and 3 is in State of Decay 2, we sort of cast a radius around the player and we spawn zombies. And so you're always and forever facing zombies, no matter where you are in the world. In State of Decay 3, we're hoping to have a little bit more variability in the zombie presence that's around the player. Okay. And so as you go to places, human settlements, old towns and things like that, there's going to be a greater concentration of zombies there versus like out in the woods. So I think that'll give the player a little bit of choice around, well, I'm looking for more of an exploration experience, and so I'm going to go out in the woods and see what I can find, versus like, I got to gear up because I'm going and I expect to fight, and so I need to be prepared for it.
Cool, because I know there's a lot of players who do like to take that approach in single player. They just want to chill, relax, and I was just kind of curious if that was a play style that would be supported. So
I mean, it's not like the survival games where you just like build a base and sit inside and the cozy. It's not a cozy survival game. Like there is a threat coming for you. You need to like the game doesn't wait for the player.
So when players finish maybe a long session of State of Decay 3, what is maybe the biggest takeaway you and the team hope for as far as what they're going to feel after playing State of Decay 3?
Well, I mean, I hope they had a great time. Yeah. Had fun playing. Want to come back and play some more. Obviously, like that's what we look for. Like I was telling you, like I love reading wherever it's Discord or Reddit, like fans talking about the experience they had and describing what happened. Like, oh, I was heading back and I had like, it was really like low on health, but I got a bunch of stuff in the back of the car and I can't wait to get to the base, and I run out of gas, or I run into a jug on the road, and now I've got to, just all of these little stories that happen through somebody's unique experience and how they share those with each other. I mean, to me, that like when people talk about the game, like that's marketing for us, and the more that we can create these experiences that players want to go tell their friends about, because, oh, I had this amazing experience. You got like, let me tell you, whether they're like encouraging somebody to play or not, like that's how the word gets out that this is a game that other people should take a look at.
I don't know if I'll get in trouble for sharing this, but one thing for me that I took away from playing a long session was not only how we talked about it earlier, the plague has evolved, but how everything in the game itself has, in my opinion, leveled up quite a bit. Just everything. We talked about it earlier, the visuals, the plague is now evolved, and I know we can't talk about other specifics, but just in general, I really felt everything more post-apocalyptic, more real, and just more intense. And I don't know if that's what you guys were going for, but that's kind of what I felt.
Yeah, I think, when you have a long session, it'd be great if a player was like, man, I can't believe I got through that experience. Like, I survived by the skin of my teeth. You know, like I think that's a little bit of what we were going for. Like early on in sort of pre-production and design, we talk a lot about tone, the tone of the game, and we have a target that we're shooting for that we describe as serious but hopeful. And I think there were parts of State of Decay 2 that were maybe a little frivolous or silly, you know, like, oh, find records for me to, you know, so like I wouldn't actually do that if I was really being hunted down by zombies every day.
Yeah.
So I think in State of Decay 3, we're trying to deliver a world that feels, you know, more coherent, a little bit more elevated, a little bit more serious. The threat is more real, but also maintaining that kind of element of hope that I think is really important to the franchise, that I can live through the night, I can see another day, I have a community that's relying on me, I have a responsibility and a duty to keep them alive. All of those are elements of hope. And I think as you think about the world that we live in, the real world, and sometimes it feels like it's just a mess, you know, we have a point of view as a group of creators that, no, you endure, you get through, you do your part to make the place a little better. There's a group of people that are dependent on you. They support you when you're in trouble, you know, and those are all causes to have some hope about the future.
So you mentioned the tone is going to be darker. Is it
more serious?
More serious.
Not necessarily darker.
Okay, so the tone's going to be more serious. One thing with State of Decay 2 is that it was at times it was a little goofy.
Yeah.
So is any of that going to play into 3, or is it just, you know, more serious, hopeful, but serious?
I think, you know, it's important to have moments of levity, and I think humor has a role to play in a game that can be serious too. What I think we're trying to move away from maybe is the campiness of State of Decay 2. And when I talk about camp, what I think there's almost like an eye wink that the audience has, that we as creators have to the audience, of like, well, this is a little goofy. Like we know this is a little goofy, perhaps.
Like
and
the cannibals parts.
So I think we're trying to remove a little bit of that, so that the experience just feels a little bit more elevated.
All right, guys. So we have a big announcement that I've been excited for. Waited to the end of the video. This is a big one. There is an alpha test. With that, Philip, what can you tell us about the alpha test upcoming for State of Decay 3?
Yeah, we're super excited to be announcing an alpha test. Signups are on stateofdecay.com. We encourage people that want to be a part of our alpha to hit the link. There's a survey to fill out. We're going to select people to join our alpha. It's a relatively small size, but we're super interested in getting feedback on combat, on locomotion, on the feel of the controls, on the multiplayer experience that players are going to have. And this is just the beginning of more testing to come. So throughout the rest of the year, if you don't get into the alpha, there's going to be an opportunity to be a part of our betas, and those betas are going to expand as we get closer and closer to launch.
So as I always say in my videos, one of the things is comments, you guys giving your feedback, you guys, you know, not just in my comments, but going on the website, engaging with the wish list, engage actually with Undead Labs social media as well. They're very receptive. So if there's anything in the comments that you guys want to talk about, or that you guys, whatever that is, whatever feedback you want to give, feel free to do that. And Philip, I know you guys have been always really receptive to everything that you've seen out there. So
yeah, I mean, we watch your channel, we're fans of your channel, and you know, I mean, I don't read the comments. I mean, I read a few, but like
I know Jeffrey does.
People do definitely read the comments. You know, we're on, I mean, Branson Reddit all the time, and thank God he's sort of keeping the ember
engage
alive.
in Reddit.
Yeah. You know, Discord. So those are all great places. You know, where there's a limited number of us, obviously, so we can't respond to everything that we see, but we do read it. And like I sent you, your email was there, and I just was like, hey, I like your content. And I think you were like not quite sure if I was real. And then you replied, and then we started to, you know, just over kind of email, and we had a few phone calls, and of course, as a part of the player council, you've been here, so.
And what's funny about that, I said, wait, Philip, who's Philip? I don't know who that is exactly. And so that's why for sure today I wanted you to kind of say, hey, this is who I am, and you're the guy who kind of drives a lot, and I know a lot of the team always talks great about you. So it's cool that, you know, we get to know you a little bit better as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like often in front of the community or in front of cameras. You know, and like my job is to lead the studio and and really steward the franchise. I mean, I think that's actually a big change, maybe that we haven't talked about, is as an independent company, we had a publishing relationship with Microsoft, and now as a part of first party, as part of Xbox Game Studios, we are the publisher. And so the franchise is managed here inside of Undead Labs. So I am the steward of the franchise, along with Brant and Kevin and Patrick and others here. Like, we are fully accountable to the audience and to this game. And so we exercise creative control and plan the future of State of Decay as a franchise.
And with that, is there anything you want to share that wasn't talked about today? Anything that you want to lay out there for the fans to know about State of Decay 3?
I'm just how thankful we are to our community. Like, we would literally not be here without the community. And it goes all the way back to State of Decay 1. And when we launched, the community was there. I think the sort of lore in the studio is that we blew through our full year forecast in the first 24 hours of State of Decay's launch, State of Decay 1. And the community's been with us every step of the way. Like, we have so much respect and appreciation for the community that's allowed us to be at this place today. And so we're so excited to be back in front of the community, talking about the game that we're making, starting to bring people in to be a part of our alpha test, and then the future beta tests that are going to follow later in the year. We're just nothing but gratitude for the community.
And I'm really excited for you guys, because the game is really shaping up really well, and it's imperative you guys get in there, sign up, get in there and play, and any feedback you guys give them makes the game better when it comes to launch. So I really feel like this is something you guys want to get into if you can get into it. And I'm excited for the game. There's a lot of good stuff that I think people are going to be excited about, and some cool features and things that they'll get to see. Multiplayer, I think, is going to be fun. And it's interesting you're saying multiplayer is also going to be part of alpha.
I think, I've worked on a lot of games in my career, and this is the most fun, the best looking, the most performant game that, with this much time still to launch, that I've ever been a part of. So I'm very, very excited for people to have an experience with it.
If I didn't ask this question, everyone over there is going to be really mad at me. So I have to ask, even though I do know the answer. With that, can you give us any information on a release date or release window for State of Decay 3?
Nope.
There you have it. Nope. If I didn't ask, they would get mad at me.
Yeah,
So.
and we just are not ready to talk about our launch date, and in part because we just want to make sure that we can deliver the best possible game we can for a launch. Obviously we have a target internally that we're striving for, and we feel really good about it. And we're in this, the steps that you would take alpha testing and beta testing on the run to launch. So, we're not far. And there will come a point where we make our announcement on our launch date, but today is not the day.
Once again, thank you, Philip, for having me. It's been a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to you guys testing the game out. It is, it's a lot. There's a lot going on. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. Make sure you get in there. I'm really excited that you guys are going to get to play what these guys have been putting out, and it's looking really good. So make sure you guys check it out. And thank you again, Philip.
Oh, my pleasure. And I am in the fortunate position where I get to represent the work of an entire studio and our extended group of partners that are supporting us. And they are all incredibly passionate and working super hard. So I get the easy job of being able to represent the work of quite a few people. So yeah, we're super happy to have you and excited for people to get into the alpha.
And with that, make sure you guys check out that link down below and sign up for the State of Decay 3 Alpha. You don't want to miss that. And of course, subscribe for more future exclusive content.